Hi, and welcome to Home on Arbor Point, where we talk all things leadership and lifestyle. If you're new to my page, I'm Kelly. I'm a principal in Central Florida. I'm in my third year as a middle school principal, and I was an elementary school principal for 5 years prior to becoming a middle school principal. If you're interested in school leadership or principalship, or just curious about what a principal does with their life, be sure to like and follow because I'm happy to share. And sometimes I overshare. I'm so glad we connected and I'm so glad you're here. So the question I get asked most about school leadership is, how did I become a school principal? My journey is different from many people. And the one thing I want to share is that no one specific path takes you to school principalship. There are many different paths that can get you there. So let me share a little bit about mine. I started in education 20 years ago. I absolutely love it. I was a classroom teacher for 8 years, science teacher, and I also taught the Avid elective class. Mostly it was 8th grade, but I did teach 7th grade Avid, and I did have a year of 6th grade science. I absolutely love teaching. If there is a role on our campus that is my absolute favorite, it is teaching. I loved that experience of getting to work alongside the kids every day, developing engaging plans that would lead to higher learning outcomes. When I taught 8th grade for many years and then switched to 6th grade, it was quite a learning curve. My middle school peeps know what I'm talking about. I absolutely loved that, and I had really good experiences. All of my classroom experience was at the middle school level. I was a classroom teacher for 8 years. In my 6th year, I decided to return to school to get my master's in education leadership. It was at this point that I thought, someday I think I want to be a school leader. And my next video, or maybe not my next one, but one that will be coming, I will do a video around how I was inspired, or maybe who inspired me to be a school leader. But in year 6, I returned to school to get my master's in education leadership. That took me 20 months to get. Once I had that degree, I made the decision to leave the classroom to take a position at our county office. The reason I did that, instead of just trying to step right into school-based leadership at that time, was I knew to be an effective instructional leader, I had to know how to coach classroom instruction. It is really difficult to learn how to coach classroom instruction when you're in a classroom. I had an opportunity come my way to go work at our county office in a role that had many things attached to it, but one of it was being able to walk classrooms and give coaching feedback to school leadership teams. Talk about a growth area for me. Talk about stepping out of my comfort zone. This was huge. In this role, we were working at schools who were close to corrective action from the state. So these were schools who had seen a trend in drops of their school grade and were close to being in state corrective action. So we had a team at the district office that would go out to the school once a month to walk classrooms and give coaching feedback to the administrative team in the hope that it would turn around and the school would not have to fall under corrective action. If I've ever had a role that challenged me, that took me out of what I was most comfortable in a quick amount of time, because I literally started in the job and feet were on the ground at schools. And it's difficult to coach instruction to anyone, but especially to school leaders. And I'm sitting at tables with principals, assistant principals, well-seasoned literacy coaches, and I'm trying to coach them in instruction while learning how to coach. But it was an incredible year of learning and growth for me. I did that for 1 year, and then I accepted an assistant principal position at a middle school in our district, which it just so happens to be the middle school where I am principal now. I was an assistant principal for 3 years. It's an amazing school. Also another great learning opportunity. I must say the culture of the school was so fantastic. Being brand new to school leadership, they certainly welcomed me, accepted me, were gracious when I made mistakes, all of those things. 2 years in, I interviewed for and was offered my very first principalship, which was at an elementary school that fed into the middle school where I was an assistant principal. And just a beautiful season. Can I tell you, if you get a principalship and you're ever fortunate enough to get a principalship at a school with some very caring, nurturing people who certainly understood that I was new in this role and that I was also coming in with zero elementary school experience. I couldn't have asked for a better team and a better crew to work alongside. Was it a huge learning curve? Absolutely. I knew very little about early literacy, and I certainly didn't have a strong foundation in literacy throughout elementary school, and that was a huge learning curve for me. It also happened that my year 2 at the elementary school as principal was the year that we shut down for COVID. So I'm a very new to principalship principal who is going through a global pandemic. I don't think we could have done more in those first 2-3 years of my principalship if I stayed on for another 30 years. It was an incredible season, an incredible time of learning and growth. 5 years in, so in spring of 2023, the principal at the school where I had been an assistant principal was being asked to move to the high school to take over as principal because their principal was retiring. So he was moving up to high school, and they asked me to move to the middle school in his place at the school where I had been an assistant principal for 3 years, 5 years before. And I have to tell you, that felt like an absolute dream. I think when you are at a school, when you go into school leadership, you understand that the school to which you are assigned might not always be your choice. And we know as leaders that we have to step in and we have to do the best we can and lead people regardless of where it is, what it is. If it's not your first pick, you're gonna still do those things. And there's also a feeling when you have fallen in love at a school and fallen in love with the culture and the students and the families and the staff at a school, and you're moving to another one. When you pack up your boxes, you don't ever really envision that you're going to return to that school. So when the superintendent asked me to return as principal, it took me a couple of days for it to really sink in that was happening. I was absolutely so happy at the elementary school where I was serving as principal. It was not that I was not happy in that role, because I could have retired out of that elementary school and been just so overjoyed. But being able to have an opportunity to return to the middle school that just held my heart, that I absolutely loved, just felt like such an honor. And the other thing, the principal that was leaving there had been is a long-term friend of mine. And I knew the shoes I had to go in and fill. And while that was daunting, I also knew about that staff, that they would welcome me with open arms. And it would be a truly, truly beautiful experience. So in summer of 2023, I made the transition from elementary school to middle school, and I absolutely love it. Another question I get asked a lot is, what are the major differences between leading in an elementary school versus leading in a middle school? And there are some common things, good instruction, strategies that engage kids. Those things really don't change. They might look a little different when you're doing them with 5-year-olds versus doing them with 13-year-olds, but good instruction is good instruction. So from an instructional standpoint, other than learning the standards and those types of nuances with strategies, you're pretty good. But leading in a middle school is very different because the behaviors of children are very different. It also, I don't know how to frame this, so I'm gonna try to be a little delicate with my words, because I don't mean it in a negative way. But I was at an elementary school with high parent engagement, and parents were very actively involved. And it's just very natural that in middle school, that engagement level tapers off. And it's not always because the parents want to or the staff wants it to. A lot of times it is because the kids want it to. They come into the middle school and they kind of want their independence. They don't want mom there all the time. So it's a little different. It's a little different experience. And I will tell you that was also very different. We have amazing parents in our middle school, and we have amazing people working in our middle school. And we want the parent involvement. Let me just say that. But I also understand that for the children who maybe had parents at the school 2 times a week helping and volunteering, they don't always want that at the middle school level. And that was a little eye-opening for me. So it's interesting to see some of those nuances. Of course, teachers, staff, school culture is different no matter where you go. I've been very blessed to be principal in 2 really amazing schools with great school cultures. The middle school where I'm currently at, we truly have a regard for one another, and teachers truly do love on and lean on each other every single day. I also get this question a lot. What is the most challenging thing about principalship? I don't like to speak negatively about education, and I don't like to speak negatively about my experiences in education, because while there have been negative experiences, by far the positive have outweighed that. But I will tell you the hardest thing about being a principal is also one of the coolest and best things about being a principal. So ultimately, everything that happens, the buck stops with me. So we have great success in our school, student academic performance grow, our school grade grows. We get to see this trend line of data that shows students are growing and improving, and our instructional practice is improving. Those are all exciting things that, yes, you get the accolades for, you can take the high fives and own. But I also have to own the things that are not so great that happen in a school. And when you are the principal of the school, it doesn't matter if you had a direct hand in the decision that was made to do a certain thing. Ultimately, you are responsible for it. So I've had to make apology for, I've had to sit and talk a parent through some decisions that other people made that I necessarily would not have made, but I have to own them, and I have to take responsibility for them and set a new path to either correct, help fix, apologize, all of the above. And sometimes that's a little difficult. I am a human. I certainly understand that, we might make 10 decisions and then the 11th one's not so great. So I always believe in extending grace to people when that happens. But I'm also human, and sometimes decisions are made that I'm like, I would have never done that, or why did you do that? And of course, I wouldn't ever frame it that way, but sometimes you feel that way. And I have to be the one who has to apologize for it and take ownership of it. And sometimes that's a little challenging. Sometimes the beat up goes on a little bit. Like sometimes we're not so quick to forget those things, but overall, you move through it. So another question I get asked a lot, would I ever consider returning to the classroom? Absolutely. I loved teaching. I loved the excitement of planning a really engaging lesson. I taught science, and I think that's the coolest subject to teach, and designing and implementing labs that give students that hands-on learning with science practices, I just absolutely loved. I would consider going back to the classroom. Now, I absolutely love the job I have now. So I wouldn't want to give up principalship to do it, because I really do enjoy the day-to-day of the work that I'm in. But if someone were to come to me and say, principalship doesn't exist anymore, what role do you want in education? Hands down, it would be classroom teacher. All right, so what questions do you have for this school principal? Be sure to drop them in the comments, like this video, and hey, why don't you subscribe so we can continue to connect?